Happy Mother's Day to all moms. It's one of the most celebrated days of the year, and understandably so. Without you mothers, none of us would be here. We thank you for the care you gave while we grew inside your tummies. As we observe Mother's Day, we hear from government ministers about lessons from their moms.
She would make all my clothes, so there was always a sense of how to dress appropriately for an occasion.
We're also taking care of some other business inside the pages of the magazine, like Petrojam's efforts to improve your lives with more than energy, and inside issues, answers on why the country is maintaining stringent fiscal measures. Hi there, I'm Adrian Atkinson, and this is Jamaica Magazine. Please sit back and relax with your mom. A wonderful package is about to be unwrapped.
Mama, you deserve a pot of gold. You are the driving force in my life. Mama, you deserve a pot of gold. You taught me how to survive. Mama, you deserve.
Fiscal consolidation.
The centerpiece of the program has been the need to reduce our debt.
Business reform.
Make sure that we transform Jamaica to make it a place to do business easily.
New and existing businesses will benefit from streamlined regulations and processes.
And pursuing strategic investments while protecting the most vulnerable.
The path we're on is the right path.
The economy in Jamaica is turning.
The fact that the international community is once again lending to Jamaica says something about their confidence in our policies.
It is now time to actually stay the course, not to lose the benefits of the hard decisions that have been made.
The Jamaican government is committed to continuing the process of reform.
The government of Jamaica is on a mission, going for growth, staying the course and transforming the economy through its economic reform program.
News came last week that Jamaica was expected to pass its 8th IMF test, even though the country missed its primary surplus target. That's the amount of money the government has in its coffers after it has paid the country's bills. Economist Dr. Damien King is in the studio to explain it all.
Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Today we talk economics, and we have with us one of the country's preeminent economists, Dr. Damien King, head of the Department of Economics at the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. We want to be talking about the IMF program, the prospects for economic growth, the kinds of things you're interested in. We thank you so much for your company. Dr. King, good to have you on Issues and Answers as usual. There's a little hiccup in the IMF program. The primary surplus target for last year was missed. Does this indicate that the program is in trouble, that we're really not on the right path? What's your take?
Thanks for having me. It doesn't, and to understand that, you just have to recognize that there are some elements of the program that can be executed and aimed at precisely, and that there are some that are outcomes. And so you can only try to put in place the measures that give you the outcome you want. And good examples of that distinction is the difference between expenditure and revenue. So to meet the primary surplus target, the government can determine its expenditure precisely. It can choose to spend or not to spend money.
Yes.
But revenue is an outcome of tax collections. And therefore it is affected by the efficiency of tax collection, by the amount of inflation that the economy has experienced.
So ironically,
by the amount of economic activity.
Yes, low inflation
absolutely
negatively affects.
So you sort of aim for the amount that gives you the target. But you can always come in a little more or a little less. And so in that context, it doesn't really represent an abandonment of the program. It just represents the understandable, I think, inability to determine that with precision.
It is likely that the IMF will factor those issues in looking at its own assessment of the program.
I would think that since the missing of the target does not represent a failure of commitment on the part of the government.
Yes, that's what EPOC chairman said.
That they would look at it quite favorably. The other thing to bear in mind, of course, is that 2 years into the program, Jamaica has now shed the reputation it had for not being faithful and committed in implementing IMF programs for the previous 25 years. So now we have credibility.
We have credibility now.
You see, we have a lot of credibility because of the discipline that we have exercised in putting in this program. Discipline that even reasonable people thought was beyond the capacity, the management capacity of the government. So I think because of that now, that anybody looking at this will believe that it was a genuine miss and not, you know, a failure to be committed to the program.
So you are saying we still have a credible economic program?
We have a credible economic program, and it seems to me we are still making a credible attempt to put in place the program. I don't think this signals any weakness.
Is the 7.5% primary target itself unrealistic? There have been criticisms by some persons and criticism by the Washington-based Policy Institute recently on that. What's your view? Tell us the importance of a primary surplus.
Well, how do we come to the 7.5%? And it's interesting because after the major elements of the program was announced, the Caribbean Policy Research Institute did an independent modeling of the program to see if it was going to deliver the fiscal outcomes that it had promised. And it was independent because I have no idea what the IMF model looks like. So we sort of constructed our own and did a simulation of how the economy was going to evolve and what the expenditures were likely to be and what the revenue was likely to be. And we concluded that a 7.5% fiscal surplus just barely and gradually turned around the debt trajectory to make it start pointing downwards. To the point where 7 years after the start of the program, we would only get to a debt of 100% of GDP, which was very close to the 96% that they estimated. So here's the point. The question is not whether 7.5% primary surplus is too stringent. It is what do you actually need to achieve to solve the problem. And 7.5% just barely achieves it. So had they gone for 7%, then the debt trajectory would still be rising.
Which means that the sacrifices would have been in vain anyway.
Absolutely. So
it's necessary to stay the course, you would say?
It was necessary to make the government sustainable.
Yeah. People talk...
Now it's kind of hard that something of that magnitude, you know, puts you in a position where you sort of have to do it or you sink. But that's the situation we've gotten ourselves into.
That's the condition we had. Yeah. There are a number of persons, Dr. King, who talk about the pain of the program, who talk about the pain of the adjustment. They look at the health sector and they say, see, the health sector is starved of investment. Public sector workers are demanding more than a 5% increase. What do you say to these persons?
Well, one of the reasons that I am not particularly convinced by that argument is that if you look at our experience in Jamaica over the dozen years
hold the thought there while you expand on that important position. Leading economist Dr. Damien King speaking to us about the government's economic reform program and the prospects for growth. We take a break, but we'll be right back.
Employers, tired of waiting in long lines at the tax office? Wait no further. Government is making it easier for you to pay taxes. As of January 1, 2015, file your employer's annual returns online. No lines, no hassle. Tax Administration Jamaica TAJ will be implementing the mandatory electronic filing of all employers' annual returns. So get with the program and save time and energy. For more information, call 1-888-TAX-HELP. That's 1-888-829-4357 or visit jamaicatax.gov.jm.
UWI Department of Economics head Dr. Damian King is our guest on Issues and Answers. Dr. King, you were completing a point. You were making a point.
Yes. When we try to understand what is called austerity and difficulty of enduring the consequences of the IMF program, I think it's important to put that in the context of the dozen years that came before the program was implemented. And the difficulty and hardships of a debt level that was rising and getting out of control. During that period, in order to continue to service this rising debt, the public sector workers were not getting wage increases, the health services were not getting sufficient funding, the education sector and security was not getting sufficient funding. So it is the inability to fund public sector workers and public goods and services why we had to solve the problem. Now, once the problem is addressed and the debt servicing starts to come down, then we will have the funds to do those kinds of activities.
So it's not that we are moving from an ideal situation to a situation of pain.
I mean, we've had the experience of dealing with high and rising debt, and it was not happy.
Because the consequences of that high and rising debt was
unpleasant. It was unpleasant. It was economic stagnation. It was an ability to fund capital expenditure by the government and public services. And we got to the point where it was literally unsustainable. That is to say, the people who were willing to lend the government increasing amounts of money for the previous dozen years were no longer willing to do that.
So we had no option but to go to the lender of last resort because there was nobody else to borrow from.
Well, we had no option but to engage in fiscal consolidation, which is to say, to look at our expenditure and revenue and bring it into balance. Now, that had to be done. As long as you are going to do it anyway, as long as you have to do it anyway, you may as well get the IMF to come in and put a stamp on it so you can get some cheap money at the same time.
But what about those who say, Dr. King, that the policies themselves are counterproductive, that they are not going to produce the growth which is really needed to keep your debt sustainably low? Deal with that.
There are two ways of looking at what causes an economy to grow. One way is to try to identify big investment projects. And either the government engages in those big investment projects, or you send a team out, an investment promotion team, and you offer tax breaks and you get some big company to come in and do big investments. I don't think that's a good way to go about economic growth, because the growth is going to be confined to what is inside and peripheral to those projects. I think it is more instructive to think of an economy the same way you think of tending a garden. That, if the plants you have don't look like they're doing so well, then there's something wrong with the conditions. Either the soil is too sandy or you're not getting enough water. Going out to the plant shop and buying more plants and putting it into the same conditions is going to give you the same outcome. So I think a better approach is to try to improve the conditions. How do you improve the conditions? Well, you bring inflation down, because high inflation makes people think short term and not long term. You balance the budget so people can go about their business without worrying about a default next quarter and a fiscal crisis and capital flight. And you build highways so that goods and people can move around very quickly. Now that sounds like very much what is taking place. So I think that just creating a better environment for growth is going to yield a growth benefit. That's not all there is to it. That leads to two other questions. One, are there other elements of the economic and business environment that can benefit from similar improvement? And the answer is yes. So at some point we need to turn our attention to that. The second question it leads to, which is a question where informed people can differ, is looking at the economic environment and improving the conditions for growth a really sufficient condition to get us to high sustained growth. And, you know, as I said, intelligent people are divided on that one.
Yes. But we are generally moving in the right direction, you would say.
Well, insofar as improving the conditions in the garden are a necessary condition.
Yes.
Then it certainly is in the right direction.
And that's a precondition to any growth.
To any kind
that
of
is
growth.
to come
Right.
anyway. It was our pleasure to speak with economist Dr. Damien King, head of the Department of Economics at University of the West Indies, dealing with economic issues that concern you. Next week I'll be back. Until then, Ian Bourne wishing you a pleasant day.
Guys, I'm not ready.
Ready a long time. Let's go. Ready, Mona?
Yeah. Oh, Shelly, I have a file for you for tomorrow, okay?
All right.
I'm going to leave it on your desk.
Sure, go right ahead.
But Shelly, you don't shut down the computer.
But it not gonna do nothing.
But of course, when you leave it on, it burns excess energy.
I said go?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you know that the country foots the bill to import the fuel that produces electricity? Let's all play our part to conserve on energy by ironing once per week, unplugging all appliances when not in use, and avoid keeping the refrigerator open for a long period of time when removing food. Get smart. Don't get left in the dark.
Petrojam is doing more than supplying the country's energy needs. It's also actively promoting good healthy practices among residents who live near its refinery. As you'll see, these health fairs take care of many medical needs at no cost to residents.
Not even the rain could put a damper on the 9th staging of Petrojam's annual health fair. The event was held recently at the Oil Refinery's Marcus Garvey Drive premises and attracted residents from Greenwich Town, Tivoli Gardens and other neighboring communities.
It's our flagship program, very important to us. The community in which we are situated, very important to us. Even though there is rain falling, a lot of people, you can see the amount of people that are here. It's important to them.
Jennifer Palmer is among the many patrons who come to the health fair year after year. She highlights the valuable and convenient service that the health fair continues to provide.
Me sick and me can't afford doctor bill. And doctor bill right now too expensive, so me appreciate this.
Ms. Palmer continues to make good use of the offerings.
Well, you see, the reason I'm coming back here is because I'm getting help here. When I just started to come here, I was so sick. High blood pressure, sugar, high cholesterol, swelling, and I come here and I get a lots of medication and it really, really, really helps.
As in previous years, the health fair provided patrons with a range of health and social services and information. Residents did pap smears, medical examinations, diabetes testing, blood pressure screening, echocardiograms, path registration and birth certificate applications, all in one location and free of cost.
Winchester Pharmacy, we're giving back to the community. We have medications here that are free of cost. The doctors are here, they're writing prescriptions, and we're able to dispense it to the patients who cannot afford their medications.
The services that you receive here is great.
It really makes a difference because they can't afford it. And this is our way of saying, here's something we can do for you. And they've been very, very grateful.
Residents also could not afford to be ignorant about the chikungunya virus, CHIKV, and Ebola. Petrojam ensured that they were made aware of the diseases, symptoms, cause, and prevention.
How much egg can one mosquito lay in? No.
in their lifetime. 1,000. All right? 1,000. 1,000.
Petrojam went a bit further this year and ran sessions to demonstrate how setting aside money for savings and life insurance can contribute to their financial well-being. The engine that keeps Petrojam's health fair going year after year is a dedicated team of sponsors and volunteers.
This is my third year being a volunteer here. I originally came for community service because my mom is a worker of Petrojam, but I kept coming back because I really liked how Petrojam came together to actually help out the surrounding communities. I like the feeling that it gives me at the end of the day. That's why I keep coming back.
All the sponsors came out, community members came out, and the services that we wanted to give to the community, they are participating.
Next year I must come back, it's a good thing. Must always keep it up. So every 3 months.
The Petrojam Health Fair, fueling life for surrounding communities.
Gift of life astounds me to this day. I give it up for the woman.
We're used to seeing these persons in their very serious roles as government ministers. They hold some of the highest offices in the land, but they didn't get there all on their own steam. Watch them reveal their softer sides as they tell us what their mama taught them.
Thank you, Mama, for the 9 months you carried me through. All those pain and suffering. No one knows the pressure you bear. Just
one is to be a humanitarian. My mother got me involved very, very early in life in volunteerism, to volunteer with Jamal at the time for adult literacy. From I was 4, I was working with the the World Hunger Project, handing out pamphlets on world hunger. And so I think from that age, that was what really got me involved in community service. That was one lesson. And the other one was she would make all my clothes. So there was always a sense of how to dress appropriately for an occasion. So from very young, I had a blazer in my closet. And I remember at my 6-year-old birthday, I fell in love with jumpsuits from my 6 because she made me a shiny pink jumpsuit. So I think those 2 things would be, apart from a number of other things, but I would say those 2 certainly have defined a little bit of who I am today. Her name is Dorothy Cynthia Hanna, but everybody knows her as Shirley Hanna.
One of the most important lessons I've learned from my mother is the need for us all as her children to do hard work, to be disciplined, and that education is the key to advancement. Every single one has assisted me, and I think I'm better off for it.
I didn't learn how to cook, although she tried to teach me. No, I regarded my mother as the best. She was a total housewife. I come from a family of 6 boys, 2 girls, and an adoption. And she, along with helpers along the way, kept everything going. She was loving, caring, and what struck me when we were in the country, if ever she had to make a trip into the corporate era, it was a joke because she would go out and then come back. Is everything all right?
I grew up with my grandmother in a small community called Browns Hall in St. Catherine, and I would have learned quite a few lessons from my grandmother. She was a shopkeeper and a seamstress, but a very strong woman. She ran home and shop and church and showed us that you could be a strong woman who was responsible for tending to the household while earning a living and while setting for you leadership examples. And so I think I would have gotten from my grandmother confidence, strength of character, and a determination to always do well.
my late mother, who believed in me and was my unquestionable support.
There isn't anything or anyone that I could be, and it just wouldn't feel right. Never didn't have you by.
One of the most important lessons I've learned from my mother is always to stick to the core values and to truth, and you can never be wrong.
My mother actually died in 2000, but she taught us the importance of hard work, of integrity, of being true to yourself, of going after the things that you want to pursue in life, and of being humble in everything that you do. I think I've tried in my entire life to try and live true to those values. In fact, I think everything that I do is to honor the work and the guidance of my parents, both my parents.
She stayed married to my father for 46 years. And she stayed, and her biggest job in life was to raise her children, giving me a stable home and a loving atmosphere. And she taught me to love reading and to use words. And she gave me a strong spiritual foundation in the church. I bless her memory. Family is the most important thing, and she gave us an example of strong family life. What a wonderful thing if all of us could do that. Her name was Lena Mae Thwaites. She died in 2008 in her 106th year. I'd like to wish Happy Mother's Day to my wife, Marcia. We've been married, this is our 46th year. We have 7 children and 15 grandchildren. And she too has given her life for the strength and uplifting of her family. What a gift.
When everyone was down on me, you always did understand. You gave me strength to go on.
When you're spoken to,
that's right.
You must be seen and not heard.
All the time.
Fear the rat, don't spoil the child. Obey your parents.
That's the law. This is a call to Jamaica.
Call to Jamaica.
All over the land.
All over the land.
Protect our children. Let's take a stand. This is a call to Jamaica.
Call to Jamaica.
All over the land.
All over the land.
Protect our children. Let's take a stand. We have a right to an education. We have a right to be loved and be free. We have a right to have food and shelter. We have a right, yes you are. We have a right to be wherever we be. We have a right to be loved and be free. We have a right whosoever we be. We have a right to be loved and be free. We have a right.
One more Mother's Day tip. My mother said I must always be intolerant of ignorance, but understanding of illiteracy. That some people unable to go to school were more educated and more intelligent than college professors. Poet Maya Angelou on the wisdom of her own mom. The information continues to flow on our website gis.gov.jm. You may also follow us on Twitter at JIS News. Our YouTube channel, Watch GIS, has loads of videos and interviews. We'll be back on your favorite TV station tomorrow. Until then, I'm Adrian Atkinson. On behalf of the hardworking team here at the GIS, enjoy the rest of Mother's Day.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.